Let's talk about Friday the 13th.
Why won't you die?
Did you know that a young boy drowned the year before those two others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned. His name was Jason.
Well, here it is. Time to talk about Friday the 13th. Oh my gosh, I have wanted to do a video about Friday the 13th for a long time, and it's just been one of those things that I kept putting off because I wasn't sure I could get it right. And this is the perfect opportunity because really all we're going to be doing today is talking about a Blu-ray. This is a Blu-ray review. At the end of the day, that's what it is. That's what we're talking about. After my initial discussion of the film, we're going to go right into the Blu-ray details. I'm going to be talking about the special features. I'll even be talking about the special features discs that are included in the set, just so you know whether or not it's worth the purchase for you.
Messenger of God.
As far as spoilers, this is a spoiler-heavy series. If you have somehow not seen Friday the 13th or its sequels, you should do that, and you should do it soon. And by soon, I mean before you watch these videos, because I will be spoiling them. I'm not going to go deep into the plot of any given movie, so if you're okay with spoilers, you just don't want a beat-by-beat breakdown, you're good. I'm just going to be tackling this as someone who loves Friday the 13th and who wants to talk about it with other people who love or appreciate or have seen Friday the 13th.
There's something you're not telling me.
And once we're done with these 12 movies, there will be a special 13th video. Don't worry. I understand how math works. I know there's only 12 movies, but I have 13 videos. There is going to be a special video at the end that's unrelated to the Blu-ray reviews. That's kind of a big, albeit simple video that I'm super excited about, that is going to drive me nuts, and I will almost certainly be editing to the very last minute. So let's get started with the first film of this amazing franchise, 1980's Friday the 13th. Now, I have a firm belief that Friday the 13th, despite the many jokes about being a series of indecipherable clones, each sequel the same as the next, is actually an incredibly diverse series. That's not to say it doesn't follow a formula. Most film franchises do, but in a way it's kind of like, say, your Fast and Furious movies. If you're a Fast and Furious fan, you know that they have their own specific qualities that you look for, and you might feel like a Fast 5 one day, you might feel like going OG on the other, and then some days you just want to be a Tokyo Drift kind of day. And that's cool, man, because they're all special in their own way, despite following a formula. A formula which evolved over time, but we could argue that the same thing happened with Friday the 13th. So how does the Friday the 13th franchise tweak the formula in fun, entertaining ways so as to give each film its own unique place in horror history? That's what I'll kind of be digging into here. I'm looking at every film from that perspective, and that's where these videos are going to come from. What makes the first film unique? Well, it's the first film. That's the obvious thing. It is the first one in the franchise, therefore it is the sort of the trendsetter, and the one that we're going to look at as far as how does the next one differ, etc., etc. The original Friday the 13th spearheaded the slasher boom of the 1980s, directly piggybacking off the success of Halloween and really nailing the formula like no film had done between the two. The closest we had gotten to that was 1979's Tourist Trap.
Tourist Trap. Beautiful young people looking for excitement are tricked, terrorized, and trapped. God help those who get caught in the tourist trap.
It wasn't until Victor Miller broke it all down and developed the script for the then titled Camp Blood that the pieces really began to fall into place and the formula was perfected. Of course, it would be perfected further once Jason nabbed a potato sack and eventually that trademark hockey mask and joined the Mask Boys in the following year. But between the two, a whole new boom of hastily pieced together slashers emerged. In Friday's wake, more ripoffs of Halloween crawled into view, with Jamie Lee Curtis herself starring in Prom Night and Terror Train in 1980 alone. Although I should note that Prom Night finished filming the same month that Friday the 13th began its principal photography, while Terror Train completed filming a few months later in December of 1979. The point is that Friday was the first to really strike while the iron was hot and the slasher boom was ready to go. It was the first of this new batch of films that really understood what they were doing and what this genre was all about. That all said, I'm firmly in the belief that out of these mini Halloween riffs, Friday the 13th is the far superior production, if only because it nails all of the necessary beats in such a clear and effective manner. Friday the 13th is through and through an exploitation film in the purest sense. There's really nothing original about the whole damn thing. Producer-director Sean S. Cunningham, who had made his name with the super low-budget, big-time success of Wes Craven's Last House on the Left, was already hunting for the next big thing. And of course, it would be a ripoff. First, he set his sights on the Bad News Bears and actually made 2 riffs on the concept before trying Friday the 13th. He would go on to even more ripoffs after his success. And some, there were movies that weren't ripoffs, technically. So, I'm not saying he just ripped things off. He's not a total copycat, but it was kind of his bread and butter. The point being, Sean S. Cunningham was, and I guess is, an exploitation filmmaker. That might not be how he would describe it. Maybe it would be, I don't know. But that's what he was. He, fits the definition of exploitation. The impetus for Friday was just to make a film like Halloween. John Carpenter's film was a huge hit, so of course we would want to see more like it.
Halloween is making a lot of money, let's rip it off. That's a direct quote. I will never lie to you all.
Screenwriter Victor Miller, given the task of creating this world, literally went and saw Halloween, took notes on what made it work, and employed them here. And yet, when you take all these little bits and bobs, all these pieces that Victor Miller saw as the necessary components of this slasher engine, what you're left with is a near perfect example of what the slasher genre could be, would be, and needed to be. He created a template. Of course, as I already mentioned, there's no mask, which is one thing Terror Train and to a lesser extent Prom Night correctly employed. However, those films didn't have Tom Savini working special effects, which is inarguably a massive boon for Friday's appeal. The kills in this thing are perfectly crafted for such a low budget, even if with this new transfer the fakery is more evident than ever before. Several of the kills, most notably the iconic demise of Kevin Bacon's Jack, utilize imaginative special effects while nailing the kind of fears one would experience in the secluded camp setting. That setting, which would be used to more audacious effect in the 1981 slasher The Burning, also available through Scream Factory, Natch, and itself a ripoff of Friday the 13th, was in my opinion the secret sauce for Friday's success. Miller knew that the location of the doomed teens needed to be secluded away from the safety of adult supervision. Halloween chose suburban babysitters, who of course necessitate the absence of parents. A campground, specifically one that's not even fully up and running yet, is a perfect place for murder. And hey, technically these teens are prepping to become babysitters of a sort, so really the thin veil of ripoffery is basically transparent. From a filmmaking perspective, Friday the 13th is actually a massive source of inspiration for me. This was a small, cheap film that came about thanks to the universally understood need for success. With that need comes the necessity to tamp down your expectations. There's no way this little project, especially one that's a ripoff of a far superior one, come on, will grow into anything more, certainly. It's a total dream scenario, and yet sometimes dreams do come true, and sure enough, Friday the 13th was a massive hit and blew everyone involved out of the water. It's the artist's dream. Admittedly, most of us don't want our success to be through shameless ripoffs, but we also like money, so yeah. Man, this video is making me realize I have a lot of opinions about Friday the 13th. Now, I could go on and on about how Friday the 13th has inspired me, how it works as a film, how as a slasher it is, a really nicely handled piece of work that really doesn't have much fat on it, that just goes for the jugular and works. I could talk about the fact that a lot of people involved had very little confidence in this, and yet it turned out to be a massive success, and for most of them, what their career would be based on. But let's be honest, this is well-tread ground, and we have a lot to talk about. This is a Blu-ray review, after all, so I'm gonna just skip on through, and hey, if this turns out to be something that y'all like, if this is a video series that people enjoy, and you want to hear me talk more about Friday the 13th, let me know. You know, share this video, go support me on Patreon, subscribe, hit that like button, and I will happily talk about Friday the 13th a lot more. Anyway, let's move on. The point is this: Friday the 13th, despite being maligned for numerous factors, was a huge success and wound up reaching Halloween-level numbers at the box office, and while critics were less than kind, audiences ate it right up. As history has taught us, one of those tends to age better than the other. From there, we get 11 more films in a series that, in my opinion, was far more successful at quality control than Halloween. As for you Nightmare on Elm Street fans, look, you get a better ratio of good to bad, but we had more movies, and a remake that didn't suck. So let's call it a draw, okay? But is Friday the 13th any good as a film? I think so. It's not high on my ranking list, but it is nonetheless a very enjoyable, gory jaunt through the woods. It's not quite as weird as, say, Just Before Dawn, or adventurous as The Burning, but it is a solid, well-shot, smartly written film with a likable cast of characters and one of the most memorable scores ever composed, courtesy of the immensely talented Harry Manfredini. Friday the 13th is, again, an exploitation film. Not only done right, but done so right that it was propelled into the mainstream spotlight and into a cushy seat amongst the most iconic horror films of all time. Not bad for a cheap ripoff, huh?
It's got a death curse.
Now, let's dig into this Blu-ray. Doop, doop, doop. So, by the way, when this is on the shelf, it is really hard to get these suckers out. You really have to like pry it out, so I actually kind of just cheat a little bit. So we're going to be talking about the first disc and the last disc. Last disc today. Boop-a-doop. Yeah, sexy time. Let's first talk about Friday the 13th. So as you can see, this particular disc, nothing too crazy here. It's, you know, 2 discs. You've got the theatrical and the unrated cuts. And then, quick side note actually, the theatrical cut only has the mono soundtrack. And then the unrated cut has, or the uncut, is it uncut or unrated? What did they say? Uncut. The uncut version has the 5.1 surround as well as the mono. This is how it was advertised. It does say on the back, audio, DTS HD, master audio mono, and 5.1, but you know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's for both. You know, it's like when you buy a video game and it says for 1 to 16 players. It doesn't mean that the whole game is for 16 players. It just means there's an online mode or a multiplayer. So, yeah, so they never advertised it that way. So I wouldn't call it a goof on Shout Factory's part. I do question why they couldn't just have the surround track for both. It seems like it wouldn't be that hard to edit down a track. For the theatrical version, they're not even that different, so I don't really get it, but whatever. As far as, and I'm going to be doing this whenever it's possible, but this is the artwork you get on one side of the insert, and then on the other side you get this sweet old school artwork right there from the VHS. I am super into that, so I'm going to go ahead and switch that sucker up. Oh yeah, girl, let's do it to it. Yeah, boy. So there we go, Friday the 13th, looking dapper as all hell, man. Looking dapper as all hell. It's a little off, Jesus Christ. So, let's talk about these extras. Now, I just want to note, before we even get really into the extras, this whole set is missing one big thing. And I say missing, it's one of those things that I feel like would have made the set better, but isn't necessary, and that is Crystal Lake Memories. Now this is a documentary based on a book, and it covers the entire franchise in excruciating detail, and if you want even more detail, the book has even more detail, but Crystal Lake Memories is a phenomenal documentary on the series. It is several hours long. It's basically a day trip. When you have that available, and most of us do, it's on Shudder right now. It's cheap to pick up on Blu-ray or DVD, and it's usually streaming somewhere or another. When you have that, the need for extras decreases wildly. There's really no necessity for new interviews. There's no necessity for new details. We've exhausted the Friday the 13th well as far as bonus features, inside looks, all that go. So the point being, I actually don't mind the fact that there's not as much new stuff as a lot of people wanted. That being said, I could have certainly used some, and we'll get into that as we go through the entire series. There's especially some of the later discs I have serious qualms with. Let's go ahead and just dig into Friday the 13th's extras. Now, they actually don't even mention all the extras on the back of this disc. On the back of the disc, you get, it says new 4K scan of the original negative, which really is the big bonus feature here, is getting the best scan ever of this film. And lo and behold, it looks pretty good. Like, it is a great looking film. I highly, like, if this is ever available as a single release, and you just want that, totally get it. It's dank as hell, man. But a new 4K scan, both the uncut version and the theatrical R-rated version, sure. Audio commentary with director Sean S. Cunningham and screenwriter Victor Miller, author Peter Bracke, who did the Crystal Lake Memories book, and more. And this is the uncut version only. And that's a commentary from the last Blu-ray release. We get fresh cuts, new tales from Friday the 13th. That's 14 minutes long, and it's just another documentary style thing that gives you some more information about the original film. The man behind the legacy, Sean S. Cunningham, is 9 minutes. That one, it's cool to see his office and just chat with him. We learn about his relationship with his son. Cunningham, he's a pretty cool, chill dude, and I think it's always nice to have that sort of thing reaffirmed, that a filmmaker who, again, bit of a rip-off artist, but can still be a pretty dope individual. We also get a theatrical trailer, TV spot, radio spots, and a stills gallery. The only thing that isn't mentioned on this disc is the Lost Tales from Camp Blood Part 1. That's a 7.5-minute short film. There's 6 of them. They go through the entire first 6 Blu-rays, and it's not very good. It's not terrible, but it's just not a very good little short film. It's a cute gimmick. I like the idea. I just don't think it works very well, but still cute. I like gimmicks. Now, there are 2 special features that were on the previous release of this disc, and those are actually, they're still here. They're just not on this disc. They're in the bonus content discs. I don't really know why that change was made, other than maybe to beef up those discs. I don't know. But anyway, that's what you got here. So that's the Friday the 13th disc. Let's move on to the collection bonus material. So on the back, it only lists 2 new special features. And also, by the way, look how bland this is. Like, this is the whole thing. Look how fucking sad this packaging is. Like, come on, guys. You have all this new art. Give me some new art. And I'll be digging more into art, by the way, in the near future. That's a big problem I have with this fucking release, but I'm going to save that. So we get, as far as the new features they mention, we get interview with composer Harry Manfredini, which has actually been turned into a couple different interviews, and then a location featurette. And that's all we get as far as new stuff on the back. But I actually went through and I checked out every single piece of bonus material on this disc. And I'm going to read this off because I cannot remember this off the top of my head. Let's see here. We get, as far as, and this is, again, all the new stuff. Crystal Lake Confidential, that's 16 minutes. It's an interview with Sean Cunningham. It's nice to know he's still just as flabbergasted by Friday's success as everybody else. He has some very wise words for today's filmmakers. It's just a, pretty standard issue interview. We have Machete Memories, that's 21 minutes. That's an interview with Parts 2 and 3 director Steve Miner. We have Chicago to Connecticut, that's 31 minutes. That's the early career of Harry Manfredini. It's just him explaining his career. So that's interesting and very comprehensive. We get the Magic Keyboard, that's 31 minutes. That's Manfredini on scoring Friday the 13th. Perhaps wisely, this back half of the interview is sectioned off for those who just want to hear about his work on Friday the 13th. Together, these make for a really very phenomenal hour-long interview about the film scoring process. So, I was a little uncertain about a new interview because I was like, it's probably going to be like 5 minutes, but it's an hour-long interview. Actually, a little bit longer, but I'll get into that in a second. We get Blood Types, that's 21 minutes. It's an interview with actor Harry Crosby, who played Bill in Friday the 13th. This one, it digs deep into his involvement and goes over everything he can remember from production. And then we get Once Speared, Twice Shy, 29 minutes long. This is an interview with actor Bill Randolph, who played lanky boy Jeff in Part 2. Very similar to Crosby's interview, these are both very comprehensive actor interviews. Perhaps most notably, he refers to the plaster casting process used for his heavily censored death scene, which is available on the Part 2 Blu-ray. Anyway, this guy is extremely entertaining to listen to, so really solid new interview there. Back to Camp is a 31-minute featurette on locations in Parts 1 and 2. I assume that's what's being referred to here. And this one's hosted by Michael Gingold. This is a pretty fun way of presenting the material, with Gingold walking through the locations in shots designed to best replicate those in the film. He's a pretty wooden screen presence, but he's an otherwise talented dude, so that's okay. It includes interviews with a guy who had a Friday-themed wedding in Blairstown, and the current owner of the shop that Annie stops by in the first film. He also stops by the Blairstown Diner, and from there, in the last 9 minutes or so, he delves into Part 2, with roughly as much dedication. Most of the locations are gone or have been turned into private property, so this one's a little easier for Gingold to tour through. It Came from the Vaults is a 19-minute interview with La La Land Records' Matt Verbois and Michael V. Gerhard with Harry Manfredini. Same interview set up, so they just had even more footage of Manfredini to utilize. And this one's about putting together the soundtracks. Of course, La La Land Records, they put out a compilation of all of the Friday the 13th soundtracks. Finding Friday on location of the Friday the 13th films is 27 minutes. This is a photo-based look at the locations of the films as they were in the movies and what they look like today. It's actually pretty cool to see the comparisons. However, the audio quality of the narration is a little grating. It's full of pops and spikes and is not a pleasant listening experience, but it's still, it's cool to see this stuff. Alice Lives, Alice Cooper and Friday the 13th Part 6 is a 6-minute interview with Alice Cooper, his sexy stash, and video director Jeffrey Abelson, who it's just his audio, which is fine. Could have been longer. But it's always nice to hear Alice Cooper talk. He's just so charming. I know I say charming a lot, but a lot of people involved with this are very charming people. And I especially enjoyed him briefly referring to his friendship with C.J. Graham. I thought that was nice. Legends Never Die is a 4-minute black and white video wherein Jason Lives director Tom McLaughlin talks going to Hollywood Forever Cemetery for inspiration for his script while walking through Hollywood Forever Cemetery. This one gets very personal in a very weird way. It's definitely the weirdest extra on the disc, and you just got to see it for yourself. Life, Death, and Jason Voorhees is an 8-minute interview with McLaughlin, also at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. He talks the usual, but notably refers to his previously knowing Alice Cooper, the Freddy vs. Jason that never was, and of course, his idea for Jason in the Snow, which give this man money. Also figure out all these fucking lawsuits. He also revisits what was discussed in the previous featurette, making me think these probably should have just been one video, but whatever. The Road to Crystal Lake is a 7-minute interview with Cunningham, more wise words from the man himself as he reflects on the appeal and lasting effects of Friday the 13th. Faceless Evil is a 7-minute interview with Cunningham. It looks like it's the same one, just cut into 2, which, cheap way of getting more content on the disc, I guess, but whatever. They don't even advertise it, so what's the point? This one features Cunningham discussing the legacy of Jason. He wisely points out that we don't need backstory on Jason, a lesson I assume he learned from Jason Goes to Hell. Finally, Jason Was Here is a 12-minute locations video, another one. This one is all about parts 3 through 6. It's way more slapdash than the other two. It almost feels like a YouTube video that they just repurposed for the set, which, not a big fan of that. All the present day photos are by and large pretty awful. I don't know why they couldn't, if they're going to do this, they must have known somebody who took vacation pictures or something. It's really weird. Anyway, we do get some Easter eggs on this disc. If you'll have to find them yourself, but basically at a certain point you just click to the right and a little bloody Easter egg will show up. They're very short YouTube quality clips, but they're cool Easter eggs. Now, as far as archived materials, we get a bunch of those as well. I'm just going to read these off. I'm only going to mention the runtimes for a few of these because, again, they're just stuff we've already had on previous discs. The one new thing that's not necessarily a new thing, but new for being released with the sets is Alice Cooper's The Man Behind the Mask music video. Obviously, you can just watch this on YouTube, but it's cool to have. We get Scream Queens. That's an hour and 20-minute documentary hosted by Debbie Rochon about, Scream Queens. That's from 2014. It's a pretty cheap doc, but, it's cool. It's a feature-length documentary that you didn't own already, I assume. Slice and Dice is an hour and 18 minutes. That's a 2013 documentary about slasher movies. It features Corey Feldman, so hard pass. The Friday the 13th Chronicles is all 8 featurettes for the first 8 films. Secrets Galore Behind the Gore covers parts 1, 4, and 7's makeup effects. Crystal Lake Victims Tell All, Tales from the Cutting Room Floor, Friday the 13th Artifacts and Collectibles, Legacy of the Mask, slasher films, Going for the Jugular, Jason Forever. That one's a Q&A with Ari Lehman, Warrington Gillette, CJ Graham, and Kane Hodder. So if you just want to hear all the Jason's talk. Friday the 13th Playing Card Gallery, which is cool. I actually own the playing cards, oddly enough. Location featurettes. We get a trailer reel. It's 22 minutes of the trailers. I'm not sure it's a good use of space, but that's cool. You don't have to deal with ads on YouTube. You can just play that when you want to watch all the trailers, which I actually do more than I'd like to admit. Storyboards and production galleries for Freddy vs. Jason. And then Friday the 13th, 2009 promo materials. On the bonus materials discs. You know, between this and all the stuff that's carried over on the other discs and the new special features we're going to talk about, again, I do have my problems with this set, but the bonus features really aren't that. I don't have any serious issue with any of these bonus materials. Some of them are, you know, as I said, not as good as others, but it's so comprehensive. And between this and, again, Crystal Lake Memories, I honestly don't need any more special features. I'm good. I'm really good.
I looked into that mirror, I knew I'd always be ugly.
So let's talk about the problems that we have here. It's been widely mentioned all over the internet. There's been issues with the sets. We've seen sets that have the wrong discs. We've seen sets that have the wrong whole cases. I saw a picture someone sent me of they had 2 Freddy vs. Jason, just like the actual case, in their set, which is insane. And we've had scratched discs. We've had damaged materials all around. There's been all kinds of problems. So I just want to talk briefly about the problems as I've seen them. So part 1 is the mono mix thing. That's not an actual issue, even though it's being listed as one. Now part 3 has an issue with the 3D credits. I don't have a 3D player, so I really can't check this in detail since it is on the 3D disc, but that's lame. Jason Goes to Hell probably has the worst mistake of the bunch. That's the one where I'm really just like flabbergasted this happened. So it has the theatrical and the unrated versions, which is great in theory. Theatrical, as far as I know, has no issues. But the unrated version, for whatever reason, there's this shot where Big Boy here walks into the parking lot and gets his wrist snapped by Jason. And it's not on this disc. So here is the version on Shout Factory's disc. And then here is the version with the correct shot, just kind of very sloppily sliced in by yours truly. What the fuck, guys? Before I get too much into this, the next thing is Jason X is missing some audio. So in the scene where Jason X is on the holodeck and is beating the fake campers to death in their sleeping bags, the sound of them in pain is not there. So here is the scene from the Shout Factory or Scream Factory. I keep saying Shout Factory, same thing, but from the Scream Factory Blu-ray.
Done with the campers.
And then here is the scene as it should more or less sound. This is audio I got from YouTube, so bear that in mind. But here is the clip with the audio spliced in.
He's done with the campers.
Yeah. Big difference. That one's it goes like the original, the proper version. It sounds like it should sound. The version on the Scream Factory disc is like a weird art film.
And this thing is laughing at you, screaming. Look around, clear panic, start the panic.
And I don't know why that is. I think there might have been a rated, like a censored version at some point. I don't remember off the top of my head, that might have taken out some of the sounds just to make it more audience friendly, but I don't know that that's a fact or not. I don't know how this happened, but very frustrating. The only other notable thing as far as the contents of the disc that I've seen as a problem so far is Freddy vs. Jason's lossy audio track is missing. It actually says, let's see here. Oh, where's my Freddy vs. Jason? So it actually says audio Dolby True HD 5.1 and Dolby Digital 5.1 EX, and maybe I could be missing something, but considering everybody else is complaining about this, I'm only seeing one audio track available. Well, there's two audio tracks. One's the commentary, and the other one is just the audio itself. So there is a track missing there, and that is a little frustrating. That's less frustrating for me. I'm not as worried about audio tracks missing, unless they're commentaries. But it is a little weird considering that track, if I remember correctly, is on the Blu-ray, and this isn't even. We'll get into this more when I get to Freddy vs. Jason, but like this is just the old Blu-ray. It's not new. It's the same master. It's the same print. I am assuming that they did a new batch of them for this release, but it's still the same master, so that's a very silly mistake to make. That said, I don't need like a new Freddy vs. Jason disc. I'll take it, but I really, 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 really hope that Shout Factory, or Scream Factory, whatever, put out Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X replacements for people. Their replacement programs in the past have been spotty. I know several people now who have never received replacement discs for previous screw-ups. And more importantly, this is, again, something that's happened before. Halloween, that set had screw-ups that needed replacements. So it's frustrating because it feels like they need more quality control people so they don't have this problem, because this is going to affect their sales. This is going to affect their bottom line because they're going to have to reissue discs and do a whole program, and that's going to cost money. So that's very frustrating. That being said, I think that overall this set is great for those who don't already own Friday the 13th. Now, I actually never owned Friday the 13th on Blu-ray before. I owned the DVDs at one point. That was a long time ago. I don't even know where they are anymore. But I was always holding out for a good Blu-ray. I missed the previous 10 container thing of the previous Blu-rays. And after I missed that, I was like, they have to do it again. Some company has to put out the entire series front to back. And they finally did, so I immediately scooped it up. If you're like that, I recommend getting this. Most likely Shout Factory will put out replacement discs, and just, by sheer gambler's odds, you should, when they do that, receive those replacement discs. It's not a guarantee. There's a plenty good chance that you will not receive them, but I think this is a pretty solid set. And, if the biggest issues are missing a snippet of audio in Jason X and a very short shot in Jason Goes to Hell, reasonable casualties. That doesn't mean that I think it's okay. I'm actually pretty frustrated by both of those. But when you consider all the great films you get, the really solid new transfers that are in here, I mean, overall, it works out pretty nicely. The box is beautiful to look at. I do have some issues with the art and the inserts for some of the later releases. Again, I'll get into that when I talk about those. But overall, this is a recommend with a little butthole, a little asterisk next to it, because there are issues I don't think some people are going to be able to get away from, but I can. So take from that what you will. If this sounds like a good deal to you, awesome, pick it up. If it doesn't sound like a good deal, or if you're uncertain, check out the rest of my videos. As I previously mentioned, this is a 13 Days of Halloween. I'm going to dedicate an episode of this to each and every Friday the 13th movie. So we're going to dig deep. That being said, thank you for joining me. I know that I didn't talk as much about the film itself, and that's really because it's a baseline, It is a film that is not necessarily full of stuff. Like, it's not the most complicated movie in the world. It's full of very special moments that I think are straight up iconic. You got Kevin Bacon's death scene. Iconic. You've got Marcy's death scene with that axe to the face. You've got Annie's death scene. You've got the finale twist thing with young Jason rising up out of the lake and grabbing Alice. You've got Tom Savini's amazing special effects. Got the wooded location that's just dripping with atmosphere. And most importantly, you have a perfect template for the slasher genre. If you ever wanted to write a perfect slasher movie, or just like do your dissertation on what makes the perfect slasher, you'd have to watch Friday the 13th. Also Halloween, I'll admit, but as far as like movies that ape other movies and do so damn near perfectly, this is a great example. It is not as perhaps subtle
Death curse!
as Halloween, but I think it's underrated by comparison. I think people put Halloween up on a pedestal while kind of shit-talking Friday the 13th sometimes, and the reality is they're actually fairly close in quality. Not exactly. Halloween is the superior film, don't get me wrong. John Carpenter is a far better director than Sean S. Cunningham. But, you know, as far as slashers go, Friday the 13th is a fucking ride and really nails a lot of really important elements, and for my money is just a great piece of work. And it's not even my favorite in the franchise. It's not even close to the top of my list. It is like middle of my list. So I'm really excited to talk about the rest of these. I hope you guys are too. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel or consider becoming a patron. We talk about fun stuff. We have a Discord full of cool peeps. We have a lot of fun, man. And, you know, I have exclusive content there if you just really like my face. And, you know, hit that like button, fucking smash the teeth out of that bell thing. And until next time, guys, go watch a movie.